any airbrush that you have, if you don't know how to use it properly, it doesn't matter if it's cheap or expensive, it's not gonna do it. So yeah, today I'm gonna show you how to use this thing, and we're gonna use the cheap one just to demonstrate that it's not the airbrush that is causing the issues. It's most issues are user error, and that's fine. Like, we learn by making mistakes, right? So yeah, let's jump to the desk and start using it. I have my pressure set to, I think, 25 psi at the moment, but that's fine. We're gonna play with it in a bit. And the paint I'm gonna be using is the Army Painter War Paints Air, and they claim that these are ready to spray right out of the bottle, so you don't have to thin them. This is what they say, and yeah, we're gonna see about that. So you have to shake these really well. Yeah, this should be enough. And then let's put this right here. So we're gonna demonstrate what might go wrong. And yeah, I'm gonna put like a couple of drops. And let's see what's gonna happen when I spray. So it's spraying, but it's not spraying well at all. If you look at that, I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna zoom in on it, but the paint is not. It's not atomizing well. The transition between the paint and the white is not smooth at all. And one thing, first of all, I'm getting lots of tip dry. There's lots of paint building up on the nozzle or the needle that I need to remove. And second of all, if I try to do a thin line, nothing is coming out. So you can see, if you look at my trigger, I'm pulling it back. Well, we got a tiny bit of paint here. Sorry, my compressor is a bit loud. I'm gonna get a new one next week, hopefully. But yeah, you can see we barely got any paint out, so we have to pull back a lot for some paint to come out. And this paint is a bit better than other brands because at least you get something out. So if all what you want to do is cover, so all you want to do is spray some thick lines, then maybe that's fine, but that's not always the case, right? And look at the tip dry. Like, the needle is full of paint at the moment. So yeah, that's not good at all. So what do we do? So when you have thick paint, what you want to do is you want to increase the pressure. So let's do that. Let me increase it to 30, maybe even more, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so now I still have the exact same paint, but I bumped up the pressure to 30 psi, and let's see if there's any difference. Well, it's a bit better, but it's covering more. There's more paint coming out at the moment. It's still drying on the needle, but let's see if we can do some thin lines maybe. Yeah, kinda. We can, but this is a 0.5 needle. If you try to do that with a 0.3 needle, it's not gonna work out. And another thing, look at that. I don't know if you can see it. Look at the paint here, and also look at the line. Maybe I need to focus on it. Let me do that. Yeah, so if you look at the line, it is not consistent. It's like spitting paint. So yeah, it's not a smooth line. So how do we fix that? So let me put a bit more paint in here, and let me grab some reducer. So what I'm gonna use is just water. So let's put some water and see what's gonna happen. So I'm gonna put almost as much water as I put paint in, so that's like a 1-to-1 ratio. And now to mix these in the cup, I'm gonna cover the nozzle and let's bubble it. So cover it and pull on the trigger. It will create bubbles and it will mix the paint. Cool. And let's see what's gonna happen now. So it's spraying. It's a lot smoother. Take a look at the difference between this and this. If you look at the transition between the color and the white, here it's a lot smoother than up here. You can see that there are some, like, it looks grainy. I think grainy is the correct word for this. But let's see what will happen if I maybe, oh yeah, that's not good. So that's one of the other issues that beginners experience, and there are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, we thinned down the paint, so the paint is now thin. And we're trying to spray it at 30 psi, which is a high pressure, and we're super close. And the last thing that I did is I pulled too much on the trigger, pulled back too much, so I released lots of paint. And this is where you need to practice, and you need to practice a lot. That's why I'm doing it on a piece of paper and I don't have a lure that I'm painting. And I recommend you do the same thing. Grab a piece of paper and start learning. You want to learn your airbrush before you do anything with it. So before you get your lure and then you start painting on it, you need to learn how this works. So to get rid of this, first of all, you need to learn how to control the trigger. How far back should you pull? Like, you need to be able to draw tiny dots. Now this is not working again because the pressure is too high, so now I have to reduce the pressure. I'm gonna pull it down to around 20. So now we're at 20 psi, and yeah, you want to do, and these are not tiny dots. This is not working, so that's a different issue. So what's causing this? Why can't I? Okay, so sometimes it works. Like now it's working, now it stopped working. Why? There's so much paint building up on the needle. And in this case, actually, for some reason, I cannot get this paint to spray properly. You can do that. You can do something like this. That's fine. You can spray like from a distance, something like that. This is all fine, but the moment you try to do something like really tiny lines or tiny dots, this is where this paint struggles, and this is where most paint actually struggles. And you want to use good quality paint. Now, to switch colors, we're gonna have to clean this, and that's another tip as a beginner on how to clean. So what I do is, first of all, we can spray what is left of this. So I'm just gonna spray it somewhere here until it's empty. Now it's empty. So I have this spray bottle. You can even get the squeeze bottle. They all work. It's full of distilled water, and I'm just gonna spray in here and dump them out. I'm gonna repeat that until it's kind of clean, and then I will bubble it. couple of times. Again, let me spray some water. Okay, and now it should be clean. Spraying water, no color, so we're good. So regarding paints, if you want to do detailed work, I recommend you get good quality paint, and some examples. There's Createx. Createx is great. I hear a lot about illustration colors, but Wicked Colors is also great, and I think even the regular colors are great. Wicked Colors are a bit more durable, but with fishing lures, I don't think it matters because you're gonna add a clear coat anyways. Another amazing paint is Vallejo Premium Color. These are, I believe they are acrylic polyurethane. They are water-based though, and this is the exact same thing, but with the new label. So it's the exact same paint. And what I love about these is that they are so thin right out of the bottle. You can probably hear how watery they are. But still, even though these are thin, I still thin them down. I like my paints to be very thin. Like, here's an example. So this is basically this color thinned down 1:1. Now, if you're using something like this, you might want to thin it more. And the thing is, 1:1 is not a ratio that you can use with everything, because even in the exact same lineup of paint, let's say these two colors, maybe the red requires less or more thinning than the blue, for example. Just an example. Not every color is the same, and not every brand is the same, so there is no formula with this. You need to experiment. Thin it down until it's super thin, but not water thin, if that makes sense, a bit thicker than water, and experiment with your PSI. Look at that. This is a 0.5 millimeter nozzle. It's insane. It's a cheap $20 airbrush. So yeah, this is what you want your airbrush to do before trying to paint anything. And yeah, so to practice your trigger control, the way to do it is, first of all, don't point at something. Let's say you want to draw a line from here to here. Don't point at the start and start spraying and then end up here. First of all, the start and the end are gonna have more paint than the rest of the line, and it's gonna get darker. And I even see people doing this. They are going back and forth and spraying. That's not good. So what you want to do is, you want to always hold air, so just air, no paint, and then you want to start moving, and then as you're moving, you release you pull back and you release, and you get a very consistent line from start to finish. And you want to practice that, and you want to practice how to be accurate with that. So you want the next line to be like to start from the same place and end in the same place, something like that. And this requires hours and hours of practice. Another thing you can do, maybe we need a new piece of paper for that, but let's try it anyways, is you can draw, let's say, 2 horizontal lines, or vertical lines, sorry, not horizontal, and then you want to go and do horizontal line. Now, as you can see, I'm not an airbrush master, and also I have a camera here, so it's kind of a weird angle. But yeah, this is what I have been doing to improve my airbrush skills, hopefully, and help you improve them. So maybe we can improve together. And yeah, oh, you see I messed up here. And this angle is very tricky. So yeah, you want to know when to start and when to stop, and you want to get consistent in this. If you give it a couple of hours, I believe you're gonna end up doing them straight, or end up being a lot more accurate. And another thing that you can do is maybe we can paint something here, is let's do a couple of vertical lines and then a couple of horizontal lines. And yeah, I'm always cleaning tip dry. Whenever I'm posing or doing something, I'm cleaning tip dry. But again, with this paint, I have way less tip dry than this one. But what you want to do now is you want to practice accuracy. So you want to practice, if you point at something, how to get it, like how to hit it, basically, how to be super accurate. So let's aim for the centers of these squares and hit it in the center, something like that. And the trigger response here is super accurate. Now you might ask, what does all of this have to do with fishing lures? As I said, you're using the airbrush to paint these, and you want to be able to control this. You don't want to be under the mercy of it. So once you have your paint right, once you know how to control it, how to start and how to stop, and how much paint is gonna come out from the airbrush, depending on how further you... The camera turned off while I was talking. Anyways, what was I saying? So once you know how to control this, how much paint is gonna come out, you're not gonna be surprised anymore, because basically, if you want a dot, you know how to do a dot. If you want a thin line, now you know how to do a thin line. If you want a thick line, now you know how to do a thick line. So once you know all of these, it's gonna make your lure painting a lot easier. And all of this with a cheap airbrush. Imagine what you can do with something like this. Okay, so let's say you finished painting, or you want to take a break. Let's first say you want to take a break. So it's lunchtime. You want to take a quick break from painting. You want to go have lunch and then come back. So even though you cleaned the previous color that you were painting, so you dumped water in there, you backflowed, you did everything, you cleaned it with a paper towel, and it's super clean on the inside. What you want to do is, you don't want to just like store it somewhere. So what you want to do is put some water in it and leave the water in the cup. So I'm using distilled water. Always use distilled water with your airbrush, don't use tap water. So I left distilled water in there, and now I have this thing, which is a DIY thing. You can get a better one for cheap. And then put my airbrush in it like so, and leave it there. And then when I come back, I just pour off the water, spray the remaining water, and then put a new color in. Now why do you want to do that? Even though you cleaned everything, there might still be some paint somewhere here that was not flushed properly, and that's why you leave water, so that this paint that is still sticking to the needle and the nozzle does not dry. And then you put it here. Now you can also do that if you're, for example, it's the end of the day, you want to go to sleep and you want to spray tomorrow morning, for example. You can also do that, but don't put airbrush cleaner or something with solvents, don't put that here and leave it for a long amount of time, because the cup is usually coated with something to prevent the paint from sticking to it, and these solvents will damage that coating. Now let's talk about what to do when it's the end of the day and you don't want to airbrush anymore for, let's say, until tomorrow night or something, and you want to clean your airbrush. So dump the water here and get rid of anything, flush it out, and yeah, let's clean it. So I'm gonna get rid of the air hose because we don't need it anymore. So what you want to do is unscrew this thing right here and pull the needle out, and we are going to unscrew this part at the front also to expose the nozzle. First, let's get our needle and clean it because there's some paint on it here. So what you want to do is grab a piece of paper towel. We can use this airbrush cleaner. You don't have to use airbrush cleaner. You can use alcohol or even acetone, but make sure that you don't get any of these materials near the O-rings and these stuff, because yeah, you will damage them, you will wear them out. So put some cleaner here, put too much, but anyways, and you want to hold your nozzle or your needle, keep mixing them up and pull it down. Don't put too much pressure on it though, and only pull down, don't push up, because you're gonna stab yourself. Every beginner has stabbed himself or herself once or twice. So only pull down, and it's already super clean. You can see the paint. If I'm in focus, yeah, now we're in focus. You can see the paint has already stick to the paper towel. You can twist it a bit, but don't put too much pressure on it. You don't want to bend it. And yeah, that's for this. Now, regarding the nozzle, this is important. Make sure to watch some videos on your specific airbrush, which is a mistake that I have personally made. So the Water Eclipse also has a similar thing. It also has a nozzle here, but you don't want to touch that. You don't want to unscrew that. So for this cheap airbrush, the only way to get the nozzle out is to use a tool like this, which is usually provided with the airbrush when you buy it, and then you can unscrew it. But be careful with these things. This is a super fragile piece that is also tiny, and you might drop it and lose it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the needle in and just like rotate it like that. Now what you want to do is, maybe if you have an old needle like this one, I use this one for cleaning because it's old and I don't use it anymore for painting. So I'm gonna put some cleaner in here, get the needle, put it inside of it and rotate it a bit, but don't put too much pressure. Like, don't force the needle inside the nozzle or you might break it again. This is a very fragile piece. Yeah, now we screw this back on, and again you have to be super gentle with this one. So just barely screw it in. You don't need to use pressure with this one. And then we can put this one back on, the cap. Now when you're putting the needle in, let me grab one of these. You don't wanna put too much pressure, as I said here. So put it in until it reaches the end. Don't push on it too much. And then what you want to do is apply a very gentle amount of pressure with your finger, not too much, just to make sure it's seated in, and then close this. And that's it. That's all you have to do to clean your airbrush. And now you can put it aside for days, weeks, months, it doesn't matter, because we know that there's nothing inside of it. There's nothing that's gonna dry and cause a problem. Because if you didn't do this and you noticed that the nozzle had some paint in it, and even the needle had some paint on it, the more you leave it, the more this paint is gonna dry. After a week, it's gonna be so dry, it's so hard to get rid of. You don't want that. You don't want any paint in your airbrush when you leave it alone. Let it be. Yeah, I want to say that I have enabled channel memberships in case you found my videos useful and you want to support this channel. I currently have only one tier, but I'm gonna be updating it. So yeah, if you want to help support, feel free to do so. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned something new, and see you in the next video.